Two people were killed after a missile hit a Polish village near the Ukrainian border. Russia has denied that its missiles crossed into Poland. They've termed such reports, and I quote, as deliberate provocation aimed at escalating the situation. U.S. President Biden said that it's unlikely that the missile was fired from Russia. Colleague Sanjay Suri joins us from London. Sanjay, it seems like more and more evidence gathering that this was not perpetrated by Russia.
Some clear indications are emerging that this could have been a Ukrainian missile that landed in Poland, killing two people. We know from Polish authorities that this was a Russian-built missile, but Ukraine does deploy Russian-built missiles, principally the S-300 anti-missile system, and this anti-missile system was very actively deployed at that time. We know that about 90 missiles were fired from Russia into Ukraine, of which 70 were intercepted. So a lot of Ukrainian missiles were up there trying to get at these Russian missiles and did so quite successfully in most of the cases. But it's very likely that one of these either malfunctioned or was diverted from its original trajectory and landed in Poland. Had this been a Russian missile, we certainly would have known by now from the evidence on the ground. Enough time has elapsed since this missile landed in Poland, and the markings would have been very telltale indications of where it came from. We are told by President Biden that it's unlikely that it was fired from Russia. President Duda of Poland says the evidence is inconclusive. Clearly, had the evidence pointed to Russia, we would have heard from NATO, we would have heard from Poland. It is very likely that they will now keep this position ambivalent, because it would be very awkward to point fingers publicly at Ukraine for a missile that landed lethally into Poland.
Sanjay Suri, appreciate you joining us. Beata Gorka-Winter, Research Fellow at the Polish Institute of International Affairs, joins us. Beata, many thanks for joining us. As our colleague was just reporting, what we have seen coming in from President Biden and now from the President of Poland, suggesting that this was not an intentional attack of Poland. The President tweeting saying most likely it was a Russia-made S-300 rocket, but that we have no proof at the moment that it was a missile fired by the Russian side. So, I would imagine that it was a very tense morning, the tense last couple of hours. But given this clarification, would it be fair to say that less nerves as of now?
Yes, of course, there are less nerves comparing into yesterday when we heard about accidental, and now we know that that was accidental killing of two of our citizens. And but today we are closer to a real picture. Looks like the anti-rocket missile was launched from Ukrainian territory, but it was, of course, not intentional. It was not intended to land on Polish territory. It was intended to fight against the Russian missiles, which I launched almost every day, and this is really heavy shelling from the Russian side to Ukrainian territories. So Ukrainian anti-missile installations are working all day, all night, and that's what we could expect, that some incident of that type may happen, and it actually happened yesterday. But to be clear, we are not pointing a finger against our Ukrainian friends, as we were expecting an incident of that type, because it's war, it's very close to our territory, and the only country to blame for that what happened is, of course, Russian Federation, because if it was not their actions against Ukraine, and I mentioned this heavy shelling again, Ukrainian systems wouldn't be forced to work, yes, and such incident wouldn't happen. So the only message from our side now, and we are with close consultations with the whole NATO, because that's Polish territory. Poland is a member of NATO. So from since yesterday, since that happened, we had a lot of consultations with U.S., UK, France, Germany, our most important allies, also from the eastern flank. And of course, our response is clear now. We have evidences that it was Ukrainian anti-rocket system, which incidentally fell into our territory. But the country who is to blame is, of course, Russia, because they are shooting every day. They are targeting Ukrainian critical infrastructure. The Ukraine fights back, and we have also consequences to our territory, to our citizens. And now we are expecting NATO to act and to hire to make our military system upgraded to be more aware of what is incoming to our territory. I believe that the right decision would be taken during today's NATO meeting, and we have some conclusions, I believe, prepared by the government to strengthen also Polish air defense system, not only to protect what is coming through Poland to Ukraine to defend their territory.
Beata, very quickly, you said that you're hopeful that NATO will act given what has transpired, as well as the fear that this is possibly going to happen again, given the fact that there is heavy shelling at this point in time, especially after what we saw happen in Kherson with the Ukrainians reclaiming that city. So I wanted to understand, what is the expectation, what is the ask that Poland has of NATO?
Well, from our side, there is a clear message that, first of all, we now have the knowledge that it was an accidental shell, so it was not intentional. So NATO is not in the position to launch the whole machinery to trigger every, possible reaction if it was intentional. So that's the first thing. But nevertheless, we will discuss how to strengthen the eastern flank even more, as we expect, if Russia is not going to stop the shelling. So we are expecting more incidents of this type. It may happen again, and it's not excluded that the other time it wouldn't be the Ukrainian anti-rocket missile, but that they can be Russian loitering munition, which can also target our territory, as it is very difficult to track and to predict the trajectory of such munition. So I wouldn't be surprised if it would happen again, considering that Russia is not stopping hostilities.
Well, we hope that that isn't the case. Beata Gorka-Winter, thanks very much for joining us today. Appreciate your time. And that's it on this edition of Newscenter. But remember, the news continues here on CNBC-TV18. We're back in a moment after this short break.